it just keeps getting better for the San Antonio Spurs. Expectations were higher than they have been in many years past, and already the Spurs are exceeding those expectations, winning games against great opponents, the Warriors, the Thunder. Wemby exceeding his own expectations, and there are still more things for him to grow upon, and there are still things that coaches are pointing out, and we're about to break all of that down here on Spurs Digest with your host Keenan Warner. And if you guys haven't yet, I know there's so many of you guys that have that watch, that grow with this channel every day, and we're so thankful for that. But if you haven't, take a spur of the moment, get every Spurs moment by hitting that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the daily content we have for the San Antonio Spurs moving forward. But the Spurs coaching staff impressed by Victor Wembanyama's adaptability. He can do anything on a basketball floor, and we have seen that throughout his entirety of his career, and it just keeps getting better and better. But the adaptability is coming, even though there are things he still can work on. He recorded a triple-double, 34, 11, and 13. We saw that against the Kings. We didn't get to do a post-game on that or a pre-game on that. Something that happened with Brian's internet is perfectly fine. He'll be back up here very soon. Can't wait for having Brian back. Josh obviously doing his videos as well. But we weren't able to get to that pre or post game. But they obviously had a big game against the Kings, a big win against the Kings, obviously against DeMar DeRozan, former Spur. Respect for him. But Mitch Johnson did have thoughts on Wemby's performance, and it wasn't perfect. And we're going to break in as to why. But first, let's just see what's going on. 34-14, I said 13. 34-14 and 11 for Victor Wembanyama. 11 of 17 from the floor, 5 of 9, which helped contribute to 23 of 46 from 3. That's the most threes the Spurs had this season. That was in itself a great thing to see. This team continues to get better and better shooting. Stephon Castle hitting 2, Chris Paul hitting 2. You've got 3. You've got Keldon Johnson hitting 3, Tre Jones hitting a 3. So all of that is good. And then we move on to this. We obviously heard the anonymous scout talk about how Wemby looks tired. He played 71 of 82 games last year, and then obviously he's playing and prepping for the Olympics, gets the France national team to the finals against the United States, and then has to come back over to the States and then get ready to play another basketball season. So it's been nonstop, constant basketball for a guy who is just learning to adjust to the NBA style of game comparatively to the FIBA game, and then back to the FIBA, which has a little bit more physicality to that game. So his body was worn down. And anonymous scout said he looked tired. At the point when he had said that, it was 17.7, almost 10, a little under 10 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, 3.5 blocks pretty much. The blocks and steals are kind of just what he does naturally. He was only shooting 41% from 3. He's only shooting 23% from the three-point line. Or 41.3 from the field, 23% from 3. He was making a great amount of his free throws. But this was the point when we were talking the season that his shot selection from 3 wasn't great. And it was because he was taking these threes out of rhythm. Like even the step back that you saw right in the beginning, that's still an in-rhythm 3 that he's getting a good look for. Before, he was not getting those in-rhythm looks, and himself wasn't in rhythm. Like he was trying to get out of shooting slumps like it's Steph Curry when he needs to get out of shooting slumps, more so like it's Klay Thompson. And what I mean by that is getting the good open look and then looking for your shot, then hunting off the bounce and all that good stuff. Because we saw with Klay his last year in Golden State, he was hunting for that shot so much that his three-point percentage dipped and his actual factor to winning and losing dipped. But we saw that with Victor Wembanyama early. Then the comment was made, and we heard him talk like that's it. From what he saw from people, he does not like people calling him out, and this is just more proof of that. He is now averaging 31, 11, and 5. 1 steal, 3.5 blocks. Again, you can just pencil that in for a steal and 3.5 blocks. That's just what he does. 54% from the floor, 43% from 3, and 78.6 from the line. That number's come back down to earth where it's going to be around that 80 percentile. The crazy thing that I saw was this. His three-point attempt rate is .506. That's higher than Steph in his first MVP season. That was when Steph averaged 23.3 points, around 7.7 assists roughly. Warriors went 67-15. They beat the Clippers. They beat the Pelicans. Oh, no, sorry. They beat the Pelicans, and they beat the Grizzlies, and they beat the Rockets, and then on to beat the Cavaliers to win their first championship. And that Steph was great. Obviously, he came back, had the unanimous MVP season. That season was the peak Steph that we have seen and known to come to love today. But that first Steph was taking a high amount of threes. That offense, clearly, that's how the small ball lineup came on. And Wemby taking that many threes as a 7'4" guy is insane. So you hear from 7'3" to 7'6", but around 7'4". When he's hitting it at that range, when he's hitting it at the percentile that he's hitting, he's making 80% of his field goals around the basket. You can't really guard him. And I say all of this. We're going to even look at what he's averaging just on the season. On the season now, he is averaging 24, 10, about 4 assists, 3.5 blocks, a steal, 48, 35 from 3. Like, on the season, that's what he's averaging here. But even with all of that, when the Spurs had the ball, the Kings tried to succeed keeping Wemby out of the paint. He only grabbed 2 offensive rebounds and only scored 8 points in the paint, all of which came in the second half. So in the first half, he was not really on the offensive glass, and he wasn't scoring in the paint. He was hot from 3, but he wasn't getting to those spots to utilize his size. Still, obviously, uncanny shooting abilities and shot creation. The Kings were unable to stop him, and that is true. And those stat lines are fine for Kevin Durant, and I understand that sometimes he feels like a glorified 3. Like, he feels like a glorified wing, but at that height and his ability around the basket, we already saw he's making 8 out of every 10 shots around the basket, regardless if he's being guarded or not. Getting to that paint could make that free field goal percentage go above 50, and then that three-pointer becomes even more deadly. And that is something that Mitch Johnson got into after the game. It's like, obviously, the stat line was truly elite. Didn't give his best effort early in the game. In the first half, he took only 1 shot in the paint, turned the ball over 3 times, failed to secure an offensive rebound, seemed unable to overcome the physicality presented by the Kings, and the interim head coach right now, Mitch Johnson, took notice. I really like how Mitch Johnson's not afraid to speak his mind and talk about things like this. And Mitch Johnson actually said, I thought he had some very poor moments in the first 3 quarters in terms of fundamentals in solid basketball. Fundamentals, that is something that is Spurs culture. Think of all the greats to even the average players. You got people like Patty Mills when he was coming off of the bench. You've got, obviously, Bruce Bowen, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, Tim Duncan, David Robinson, Avery Johnson. I'm just going on and on. Sean Ellis. All of these guys preached fundamentals. Their one guy was Manu, and he would get under Pop's skin. But the way Manu could pass the ball, the way he could play make, he had an uncanny ability to just make plays basketball-wise, and you can't hide that basketball genius. Pop was allowing him to kind of do his thing, but he did have a leash on him, as you guys well know. He was really one of the only guys. Other than that, it was so much fundamental base with that. But speaking back to Wemby, it was a testament to him, his ability to lock in, and I thought the fourth quarter he was a man, and I thought he dominated. He's so good, but dominating the fundamentals for him, the catches, the passes, that solid stuff, it's still spectacular. And that's a great word, a great way to put it, that he didn't play great in the first couple quarters, but he still ended with a 30-point triple-double, and that's because he has so many more little things that contribute to winning. Obviously, they won the game, but he's not going to be that hot from 3 every single game. The same way shooting doesn't always travel, your defense travels, your hustle travels, your rebounding travels. Those things you can always do. And then Wemby talking about his performance. I think we took a step forward as a team tonight as far as my own performance. I think, make it a recap of it, adaptability. I think we adapted pretty well to their scouting report. He said, the triple-double is just a byproduct of making the right choices, and I couldn't agree more with that. I 100% agree that he made the right choices, and they were giving him the three-point shot, so he took it. But the reason why Mitch Johnson's comment reigns so true and so prominent is because this is not the first time we've talked about Victor Wembanyama getting in the paint. Him actually becoming a dominant force within the inside. And he doesn't have to be dominant in the way that Shaq was. He doesn't have to be dominant in the way that Wilt Chamberlain was, where it's just truly back to the basket, trying to work and then really dominating and eating up the rim. Not even the way Giannis is. But even the way like a Hakeem Olajuwon or a Kevin McHale, and these guys are great post players, all-time great post players, but this is what he has the ability to be. He has the ability to post, turn over that left shoulder. No one's blocking a shot. Looking into his Dirk kind of bag. The way obviously Kobe and Michael Jordan late in their career went from high flyers, and LeBron too. Obviously plenty of guys, but those are just three of the most notable. They went from completely being high flyers, getting their shot off the bounce and doing whatever, to being like, okay, the game is slowing down. Let me utilize my footwork, utilize my skill. And that is something that Wemby is honing in. And when he gets to 27, 28, and he really can hone in the fact of, oh, I can still shoot these threes. I can get this logo three at any time. But what I can do also is I can get the ball into the paint and really work this ball around and get myself even more efficient possessions when my shot is not falling. That is something Steph has done. He went from that 15 year when he did shoot a lot of percentage from three, but they didn't do great in the playoffs. Obviously, they lost in the finals at 16 year. It was because he really fell in love with the three. So you saw a Game 7 where he only could shoot threes and was only doing that. We see in later series that he's able to be really a playmaker, get to the basket more, got more physically strong so he can attack and really change the dynamic of a game more than just his shooting that he was doing early on. Obviously, there's so much more to him, but that's another tangent for another day. I use these guys in comparison because he has that go-ish level potential. He has the potential to be a top 15 guy all time. And when Mitch Johnson is not just falling in love with the stat line, but he is coaching him like a true San Antonio Spur, you've got to love it. I love to hear it, and I think that these are the kind of moments where Gregg Popovich would do that same thing, and Mitch Johnson is showing to really be an extension of Gregg Popovich and moving forward. This could be something that really impacts Victor Wembanyama. Do you guys feel the same? Do you think that even though he had the 34-point triple-double and that he played great, that there were things he could still work on, and how scary that is, honestly, for the league? But do you guys feel the same way, or do you think that it's something that Mitch Johnson didn't even need to talk about? Let me know there in the comments. Again, this has been Spurs Digest with your host, Keenan Warner. I appreciate all of you guys, and I will be seeing all of you guys very soon.